Well, the recording's in progress, so I think we better start. So, Pranam Da Pao, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's meeting of the executive panel. Can I first of all ask Lisa, have we had any apologies?
Hi, good afternoon. We've got Councillor Charlie McCoubry and Councillor Paul Cunningham.
Is anybody aware of any other apologies? No? Okay, we'll go on to item number 2, which is declaration of interests. Does anybody have any declaration of interests? No, I can't see any hands being raised. So we move on to number 3, which is notice of urgent matters. I haven't received any notice of urgent matters, so that does not apply. So we go on to item 4, which is the minutes of the last meeting held on the 15th of September. So we'll deal with those in terms of accuracy. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. I can't see any hands being raised, so could somebody propose that we accept and adopt those minutes from the last meeting? Diolch yn fawr. Gareth, can I have a seconder, please? Carol, will you all show that you approve the minutes? Diolch yn fawr. And comments from me in relation to some items in the last minutes of the meeting. Item number 6 was referred to the Welsh Government consultation regarding the government's arrangements for fire and rescue services in Wales. The Chief Officer and myself did attend an online meeting earlier today with the Cabinet Secretary. She will be making a statement in the Senedd later this week regarding the proposed new arrangements. The meeting was confidential and she didn't go into much detail, but I think the direction of travel that she's looking to take won't come as any surprises to us who have been involved in the consultation. So watch this space for the news that will come out from the Senedd this week. And then item 7.7, it was stated in the minutes of the last meeting that we would raise in the Social Partnership Forum our concern about the withdrawal of the arson reduction grant, which does impact on our resources in tackling wildfires. But unfortunately, the Cabinet Secretary wasn't present at the last meeting, so we'll look to raise that at the next meeting when she is present. So we now move on to item number 5, which is the performance monitoring report for Q2. And I'm going to hand over to Mike Plant to introduce that item. Diolch yn fawr, Mike.
Mike, you're on mute.
Sorry, is that okay? Ymddiheuriadau, apologies. Hopefully you can hear me now. So, diolch yn fawr i glyfuno'r droddiad ynglyn â'r y cyntaf o Ebrill hyd at...
Thank you for the privilege of delivering the report from the 1st of April.
Is to provide members with the executive panel with an update on the performance for the period of the 1st of April to the 30th of September of this year, 2025. And the performance measures the 5 key principles outlined in the Community Risk Implementation Plan for the period, namely protection, prevention, environment, response, and performance. So members will have looked at the main body of the report, and whilst there are lots of different statistics that may have changed slightly for many of the headings, what we will do is have a look at the main ones that may stand out, that should they wish to be discussed any further. Just a little bit of background for that, the North Wales Fire and Rescue Authority, as you are well aware as members, is required to work to reduce risk and address the safety of its communities, and to do so in a sustainable manner. And the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for this year, for 24-25, is how we look and outline those principles which the authority measures in relation to this performance. So looking at some of the main ones that stand out, compared to the same period in 24-25, which all of the report does, as you'll be aware, Fire incidents have increased to 1,313, 845 in the previous period. Whilst this represents an overall increase of 55.4%, the increase for secondary fires is 99.2%. That increase in secondary fires, which has made such a difference to the figures up to today, reflects the incidences of dry weather conditions that we've experienced, with fires in the open mainly driving the increase. There's also been a change for the accidental dwelling fires, in the sense that that has increased this quarter by 8.7% compared with the same period last year, with a total of 150 incidents attended. Also, there's been special service calls. Attendance have remained consistent with last year, no huge increase. However, the number of RTCs has risen by 21.5%. Work continues to work with the communities to keep them safe. A total of 9,828 safe and well checks have been completed during the period. And although this is a decrease in overall terms of 2.6% for the same period in the previous, the focus remains, as has been discussed in previous meetings with the authority, on prioritising medium and high priority visits. In addition to that, the service continue to remain committed to educational programmes that look to reduce risk to the community via the provision of the Phoenix course and individual interventions that we publicise regularly through our social media and other media platforms to address fire setting and the like. So looking at that performance report for the period of 1st of April to the 30th of September, the implications for the authority moving forward, one of the things regarding the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, that this performance report helps to demonstrate the authority's performance against the improvement and wellbeing objectives, as we mentioned slightly earlier. From a budgetary viewpoint, the implications for that is that it allows the activity and key risks to be considered as a part of the budget setting process, and that we do that when we do our departmental plans as part of that CRM IP. Legal supports the authority is required, as members are aware, against the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, to demonstrate how it is taking all reasonable steps in exercising those functions to meet those wellbeing objectives. The staffing, it helps us to include an update on any staffing matters, and members will have noted some of the information that they've previously requested is in there in relation to, for example, some of our on-call officers and how they increase or decrease depending on the challenges at that period in question. There's no implications have identified for the Welsh language or qualities implications at present. And from a risk viewpoint, this report and the supporting report demonstrates how the authority is managing its delivery against those community risks. So, diolch yn fawr i chi gyd am gwrando. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions that any members would like to raise, I'll be happy to cover them at this point.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sure that some members will have questions, so over to members. Rondo, croeso.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that. Just a quick one, Mike, really. Have you got any numbers on the visits to Berwyn, HMP Berwyn in Wrexham, please, over the last sort of 3, 6, 12 months, maybe? Is the trend upwards?
So there are some figures in the main body of the report that members may have noticed. However, I will pass over, if that's okay, to my colleague Paul Kay, who's been the main driver for the interventions that have been getting put in to HMP Berwyn, and a lot of the work that's done there, if that's okay.
Diolch, Mike. Prynawn da pawb. Good afternoon, Councillor. So we have seen an increased number of incidents since the prison opened, as I'm sure you're aware from previous reports, and there was indeed a recent spike between May and July of this year. However, I'm pleased to announce that our work with the prison itself has seen an introduction of a tamper-proof vape, which is used by inmates. This has now seen a significant reduction in the incidents due to the nature of the vape. I think significant thanks go to Station Manager Andrew McLaren and Station Manager Jamie Williams for their continued work with colleagues at Berwyn. And we are also planning a desktop simulation exercise in a non-cell area, as well as a live exercise into the new year. And we would welcome any members of the Fire Authority who wish to come along and observe that exercise. We continue to work with colleagues from Berwyn because we have also recognised that there is a charger risk with the new vape system, but that is under investigation, and we continue to see a reduction in incidents since the introduction. Thank you.
Can you give some numbers on who's at, how many attendances there had to be to the prison, please?
Yep. Bear with me 2 seconds.
Yeah, whilst Paul is looking for the figures, Rondo, something I'd like to pick up on, which I'm concerned about, is that more often than not, these are very, very minor fires which have already been put out by the time the fire service attend. But I think the protocol is that we still have to send 2 tenders to each incident, which obviously is a waste of resources and could be diverting a second, tender to an unnecessary incident when it's needed elsewhere. Is that protocol something that we're able to re-examine?
It is, Chair, indeed, and we've had conversations with colleagues not only from Berwyn but the wider All Wales from the prisons, and we are looking to see how that attendance can be reduced whilst maintaining a safe approach in PDA at the prison, but also keeping the area of Wrexham safe. To come back to some of those incident types. Incidents attended, we can see that there's definitely been there was a spike as it's increased throughout the year. Within the months of May through to August, through to July of this year, sorry, we've roughly been seeing between 9, 10 to 13 incidents per month. But since the introduction of the new vape, that significantly dropped to 5, which was in August, and 3 in September.
Thank you, Paul. Is the appliance still leaving Wrexham in the mornings to cover, sort of parts of Denbighshire, and is that having a massive effect on having to send 2 appliances to a call at Berwyn?
I can come in on that if need be.
Well, sorry. I'm not sure if it's Ant or the chief who wants to come in. I think Ant's going to come in. Thanks, Ant.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the question. So you'll be aware, members, that at the beginning of October, late September, we were finally able to put some whole-time firefighters into rural areas to satisfy the emergency cover review, and that was predominantly aimed at those stations identified of Porthmadog, Dolgellau, Corwin, and Llangefni. So we have implemented that, and that has put us in a better starting position on a daily basis, we have started to see a reduction in the amount of movements. So Wrexham's second machine is not moving to Corwin on that far more regular basis as it used to be. We still clearly manage our groupings on a daily basis. We ensure that we provide the 18 pumps a day that we've promised via yourselves to the communities of North Wales, and we will still use Wrexham's second machine if we need to. But the emergency cover review has started to give us those green shoots of positivity in relation to those whole-time firefighters in those rural areas, which improves our overall availability picture, and that allows us to use our WDSR, our rural firefighters, to fill those other gaps, such as Corwin. So we certainly we are in that infancy of the pilot. We have 4 more reviews commencing from the beginning of next year, when we'll be able to give you more detailed data in relation to the impact. But those movements are happening less. But to be completely candid, they do still happen. If we need to, we will still move Wrexham's second machine, but it's the numbers of that is reduced.
I live on just a quiet little village off the 539, and I see that the appliances passing daily though, Ant. or quite often in a week. And then I'm just mindful of the whole purpose of the review and how it panned out is down to Wrexham needing 2 appliances or 3 appliances at times, especially with the more problematic problems that we get at Berwyn. And then if it was compounded by an RTA on the 55 or something of a house fire, is this been taken into account? Since the review was sort of put back.
So the incident volume and the impact of incident attendance on the back of us putting those whole-time firefighters into those rural areas is part of the pilot and the monitoring. I don't have the exact data because we haven't completed the first quarter's review as yet. But it is incident volume and number of incidents and where those appliances are going is part of that review process. So we will be able to supply that to supply that to you. But we are in that first few months of the pilot where we are still letting the concept and the theory of it embed.
Okay, just for one final question, if that's okay, Chair. So in the event of the appliance being in Corwin, and then we're needing 2 appliances at Berwyn, where does the second appliance come from, please?
So that again would depend on the availability planning of that day. So obviously the second appliance may well come from Wrexham if the RDS pump is available at Wrexham. So we would leave 1 whole-time fire engine, and that would be our preference. In moving the second machine at Wrexham, for example, to Corwin, the preference would always be on the basis that Wrexham's third machine was available. But then it would come from the nearest available. We always send the nearest available resources. So that could be Johnstown, Chirk or Deeside, depending on which of the fire appliances were available.
I see, again, just where I live, I see the Llan appliance travelling towards Wrexham on a more regular basis, though. Is that the cover required for incidents in Wrexham, perhaps?
If we will always send the nearest appliance. If that is a Llangollen appliance in that scenarios that you've seen, we will always send the nearest fire engine because it's about that swift response. But it's certainly something I'm happy to take away and look at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda, for those questions. Any other questions from members, please? Mike, could I just pick up on the safe and well checks? You'll be aware that I've sort of expressed concerns before. The nightmare scenario I have is that we have a high priority person identified and the safe and well check isn't carried out and there's a fatal fire at that property. And I'm looking at statistics and it seems that there's just too many high priority referral cases coming through now, which obviously we haven't got the resources to be able to complete. Is there any way that we can sort of re-examine the data in terms of all those high priority cases? I think 25% of all the cases are high priority. Can we grade them into very high priority and then sort of seek to sort of focus on the ones that are very high priority in the first instance?
Mike, would you like me to pick this up?
That'll be fine, Paul. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. What certainly will say is that our safe and well checks are categorised as high priority and they are appropriately aligned with the NFCC prevention strategy. You're absolutely right to pick up on those high numbers, and that again aligns with the demographic profile of North Wales. One thing we look to when we look at high risk classification is age, mobility, whether they smoke or not, whether there is low occupancy, substance misuse or mental health. But what you're absolutely right in spotting is there is a conversation that's taking place this week with colleagues from Mid and West and South Wales around the risk stratification and alignment of a high risk, and then that would lead to a complex case which is very high risk. And what that means is we recognise that our staff are able and competent on operational fire stations to undertake some of those high risk referrals and reduce the numbers. We currently have, I think, somewhere around about 1,200 that are managed within the 28-day period by our home safety support workers. And we recognise that some of those visits can be undertaken by operational crews.
Thanks for that, Paul. That's reassuring. Mark, do you want to come in? Mark Young?
Yeah, can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear, Mark.
Okay, yeah, that's great, Jock and Vow. Yeah, just a very quick one. The executive summary, item 2, talks about the overall increase of 55%, and this is put with the increase in dry weather, etc. So we all understand extreme weather is now the new. It's business as normal. So have we got the capacity from equipment and staff availability to deal with this moving forward? Thank you, Chair.
So, if you're happy for me to come in there, that'd be to answer that. There's been a significant investment in the response department, which I was previously the technical operations manager, and it was one of the roles I had then was to look at some of the wildfire incident units, and also a period of investment which the authority will be mindful of into personal protective equipment that is more suitable to those sort of incidents. So we are looking at risk from weather extremes, etc., as part of our strategic risk register, recording that and grading it, which we'll come on to a bit later on. And also, there has been a significant investment in that. The performance monitoring report, AM Paul Kay might want to come back in here, in that it does allude to what the chair mentioned earlier about the removal of the arson reduction grants, etc., and the challenges in looking at with the same number of or reduced number of people that we had previously when that team was in place, but the increase in looking to the different groups that meet and manage land, etc., the issues with HMP Berwyn, and the constant drive to look at our high risk individuals. I don't know if I think the chief wants to come in now, Chair.
Yeah, Chief, you want to come in, Diolch?
Thank you. I think the Deputy Chair is right in recognising that this is the new normal, and that it means that our resources are having to be switched from occupations that we were doing in the past in order to make sure that they are ready and trained to deal with wildfires. I don't think this is something that is going to reduce. It will continue to be a cost pressure, not only the equipment, but training and actually attending such incidents. So in order to give members more information about this, we are going to do a training presentation before the next Fire Authority meeting in January. So I'm hoping we can go into more detail and give you further information about this risk.
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks, officers. It's obviously in hand and we recognise the challenge. So, Jock and Vow, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. One sort of aspect in the report that is a new one on me in terms of sort of fires out in the country is the rise in wildfires near to or on the embankments of the narrow gauge railway lines within North Wales. And I know that steps have been taken to see how we can minimise those, but I can't see any data in the report as to how much of a problem it is. So how many fires are we talking about, Mike? Do we have any sort of details?
So this has been some traditional problem, obviously during the warmer summer months previously. When I was response manager for Gwynedd, we were doing some partnership working with the heritage railways in that area. I haven't got a list of data to hand here, although I will go away and make sure I get that for you, Chair. I think it's something that has been highlighted, as in it's come up and being identified as something that does peak and trough a little bit, but the fact that there is being work from Paul's team to put some mitigation in and to work with the railway in order to look at not just accepting that this will always happen at certain times of year, but putting a little bit of the responsibility back onto those railways to come up with mitigation. And we have worked with them previously when we had some large wildfires up above Carnarvon. Fire Authority may recall where we had to put stops on the line and work with them. So the relationship is good, but I'm sure Paul can provide more of the fine detail on that.
Diolch, Mike. Thanks, Chair. Just to let you know and give you some clarity and context, between April and August of this year, we had 45 fires, which were near narrow gauge railway lines. That could potentially be due again to the hot and dry weather that we've had over the summer months. However, the key drivers of these incidents are that steam locomotives are emitting embers, and that the railway operators have shifted to compressed coal, which bypasses the inhibitors that we have worked with the railway operators to stop those embers flying off into that dry vegetation. We've also got the issue of overgrown embankments, which reflects and aligns with the wildfire incidents that we have attended over those summer months. To mitigate this, prevention staff have undertaken meetings with operators alongside station managers. They've worked to understand the installation of those anti-spark devices, and we've encouraged the use of firefighting carriages and to pre-wet trackside vegetation before those operations are undertaken. Clearly, it's something that we will continue to work with those railway operators and managing the land side of the vegetation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. It's positive to hear out the mitigation measures that have been introduced and the engagement that's taking place between the service, the railway companies. But I think it would be helpful from our perspective if we did have some data as to how many fires are taking place near these railway gauges, so that we can compare in the future whether or not the mitigation measures are being effective and that the number of fires have been reduced. Councillor Alan Hughes. Alan, do you want to come in? Thank you.
Diolch, Chair. Yeah. Just going back to the RTCs, Donna, we do have an awful lot of them around Corwin, between Corwin and Llangollen. Is a lot of that we're attending because the ambulance service can't, and we're sort of filling in there, helping them out from the first aid, from a medical point of view, more so than people being trapped or a fire. Are we being called out for that reason more so than making the seed safe? Would that be a fair question to ask? Do we have to go and do the job of the ambulance?
I suspect that the fire service get the call automatically when the 999 call comes through, but it may well be that they're first on the scene. Chief, do you want to come in?
Yes, we changed a few years ago our policy around what is categorised as special service calls, and that if we can be of service and we have a crew available, then we will attend. So we could well be being called out to extricate somebody from a car, or it could be just making the conditions safe, or indeed clearing that vehicle off the road in order to let traffic go through. We're not being called particularly because of our first aid and emergency response training, but of course that training is very useful, and we're there to work alongside our colleagues with the Welsh Ambulance Service. So that's another reason why that training of our firefighters is vital. But we're not there instead of them. No. But we are on scene, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you very much. We do seem to have an increase of RTCs in our area, especially between on the A5. I would say speeding is a lot of it. And I think if you look at the road going over to Llandegla, put a 50-mile-an-hour camera on there and it's reduced the crashes. And there's a lot of local residents asking me, can we make that a 50? Wouldn't be happy with everybody, I know that, but if it stopped the RTCs, would the fire service back that up? That 10-mile stretch between Corwin and Llangollen, which we had a fatality there, was it 2 weeks ago again? It's a part of the road that's causing a lot of grief, especially in the summer, with RTCs. That's it really. Just, would you support reducing that speed limit in that area?
We could certainly provide you with data about the number of incidents that we've attended and the nature of them. If that would assist in that debate, yes, certainly.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Alan. Paul, do you want to come back in?
Diolch, Chair. Just to respond to the councillor, we form a partnership with North Wales Police in Operation Atal, which sees our fire service staff provide education in and around the reduction of speed across the roads of North Wales, and this has seen a reduction in RTCs and those who've been killed or seriously injured following a road traffic collision. Thank you.
Diolch.
I can't see any other hands being raised, so the recommendation is that we note the contents of the performance monitoring report. Can I have somebody to propose that we accept that recommendation, please? Thank you, Gareth. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Alan. Will you show that you approve the recommendation? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Strategic Risk Management Report. And I'm not sure, is it Anne, are you presenting this?
No, Mike is going to present this as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, back to you again, Mike.
Diolch yn fawr. Okay, so looking at the Strategic Risk Management Report, this again, since the last meeting, we have met as a Strategic Risk Committee on 23rd of October 2025, and as per the standard agenda, we reviewed the authority's risk appetite in a number of areas. So the purpose of this report is to update where appropriate, whether there's been any change to that, and to make sure that is to satisfy and assure that is recorded correctly. So looking at the bit of the background, those strategic risks, or the risk register itself, identifies the known risks that could potentially prevent the authority from achieving its planned outcomes and objectives and delivering its core functions. Regular entries are assigned risk scores that are regularly evaluated, as we mentioned, by the officers to reflect the current state. And also we do work hard to horizon scan and to look forward as to whether things are coming ahead of us that may cause concern to the authority and to the service. So we bring out the summary report on strategic risks at least twice a year, as the authority is aware, to make sure that they're satisfied that we're managing that and looking at that. And we also have regular briefings as need be, should something be raised that hadn't been foreseen but needs something to be put into action immediately, so to speak, rather than wait. Heads of department are the main ones responsible for identifying and managing those risks. However, the committee does report as part of the governance structure on their behalf into the service leadership team and to the authority, in particular to those risks that are identified as being high or very high. So to summarise, anything that's not high or very high, we still record it, we still look at it, we still put mitigation in, but it doesn't make its way onto this particular report for members to be aware of, although that information is always available. Looking at that, we have had a programme over the last 12 to 24 months of updating and renewing training in relation to strategic risk that members will be aware of, having had training themselves. And I'm delighted to say that since the last report, we have now approved training for levels 1 and 2, which means that we've got that golden thread of understanding risk and how it leads to strategic risk from individuals who are just very new to the service and perhaps working in departments or on watches all the way through to the strategic management team. And this was something that was looked at and requested by the Merseyside internal audit process, and we've fed back to them progress on that, which will be done on a 3-yearly cycle. So as I mentioned, we looked at risk last time as a committee on the 23rd of October, and there was nothing of the main from paragraph 14 onwards. There was some interesting discussions on 1 or 2 of them as to whether the risk appetite would need to change, but it was felt that nothing stood out overly to influence any change in that way. You'll be pleased and glad to know. So I won't read through them all, but there are a number of them there. I'm happy to take questions later on if that's the case. And the risk appetite, whether that was cautious or minimal, etc., remain the same. As we always do, we'll look at some of those that have remained on the high, the very high or high category, and concentrate on those that the authority will be most concerned with. The first one is under the response function or operations function, which we still have a cautious appetite to. Due to uncertainties in the availability of funding for capital investment, there is a potential risk that facilities could no longer be fit for purpose to train our firefighters if investment in the maintenance and improvement of facilities is not provided in the future. I'm aware the members are fully aware of this. It won't come as any surprise, and that there is the project going on to do with the new training centre, and also looking at facilities that we currently have as to whether they will be fit for purpose moving forward. The mitigations are, as mentioned there, that there is a limited capacity to extend or expand some of these sites due to the fact that we don't own some of them, and the challenges in extending them to bring in some of the training for the risk as it changes, whether that be battery energy storage systems or any of the other modern technologies that are challenging us as we move forward, wildfire and flooding and all these other things as well that we're already aware of. There are also a cost to utilising some of these facilities that we can't predict whether that will change or whether it will be withdrawn, as it's not in our gift to do so, as we don't own those sites, as members are aware. Second, one of the risks remains the same as members will have been aware of previous, so I won't over-egg it, but we know that cyber attack and cyber technology is a constant threat to all public services and large organisations, and the landscape is ever evolving, as our head of ICT will certainly confirm. We do have various technologies that are in place to help protect from that, and the business continuity management plans for that are regularly tested, and I'm aware of one of them, of that being tested in the recent past, to ensure that we are as well prepared as can be possible for that. Different software has been purchased as well to assist with that, and protocols are drawn up to help with post-attack mitigations, as well as to how to restore any systems to normality as soon as possible, should that happen. We reviewed the financial risks in the last committee as well, and as members will be aware, there is a risk that the deadlines not be met due to the complexity of pension rules under the Challenger of Pensions and the need to address legal challenges. These are well known to members, and they remain on the risk register, and we continue to make sure that offers are cited on it, and that the data that we receive is managed as to the best of our ability, and that is improving. The mitigations again are that some of the cash flows are outside of the pension fund, so that assists in that sense, and that it doesn't come into that work stream in that sense. Also, looking at response and operations, the risk appetite is still cautious there, and that is remaining in the fact that, as we've already discussed earlier with members, we do have challenges in making sure that we have sufficient pumps available, particularly in the daytime, and that we may, if we were to continue, or if we were to struggle with recruitment and retention of staff, then the knock-on effect is obvious. We do have dedicated recruitment teams as mitigation, and availability teams in each area that have been invested in massively over recent times, and we continue to work in social partnership with community groups and councillors and various other groups to try and highlight the need for on-call fire officers, and also as part of the group that I chair in relation to the collective agreement that ACFO Anthony Jones mentioned earlier. We continue to work on that pilot to ensure that we've got fire cover in those rural areas of Porthmadog and Dolgellau, and that we monitor to see how that is effective and whether that would need to remain as it is or be tweaked or changed in the future. So that's a whistle-stop tour through the Strategic Risk Register, which is a large document. Apologies, it is a large document, and done my best to keep it to the main strategic risks. So at that point, I'm more than happy to answer any questions if able to do so.
Thank you, Mike, for that overview. Just for the information of members, the Deputy Chair myself visited headquarters last week, and we sat down with officers and went through the Strategic Risk Register. And one of the suggestions that was made, which is going to be taken on board, is that we have a simplified flow chart just to show what the relationship is in terms of the links between departmental heads, the Strategic Risk Committee, the Chair, the Deputy Chair, the Executive Panel, the 5 authorities, so we can just sort of better understand how the process actually works in terms of the reviews that needs to take place. So over to members for comments or questions, please. Over to Deputy Chair. Mark, do you want to come in? Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, so thanks for that. And yeah, the meeting with yourself and officers regarding this document was really important. So I'm going to touch on the cyber. So I do understand that these formal governance arrangements and independent testing and monitoring in place, and it's obviously for security reasons. I'm not going to go into detail in a public forum, but I think we can be reassured that recognised standards and external assurances are in place. But can I have a commitment that outside this public meeting, officers can give comfort to members that the cyber security is going the right way and that we've got the right investment in place? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Marcus. I think we're all aware that this is probably the greatest risk to this and all other public sector organisations. ACFO, Helen MacArthur. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. We are ever mindful of that cybersecurity risk, and you will note from the paper that our risk appetite is minimal. That said, it is very much a dynamic risk. It's constantly evolving, and our approach has to be proactive. Within the governance arrangements within the service, we do have quite robust arrangements. That includes a framework of educating staff, the prevention, the continuous monitoring and the reporting. For obvious security reasons, it wouldn't be appropriate to discuss, but members can be assured that those recognised standards are in place. We do get external insurance through our internal auditors. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but more importantly, where we need additional support, we can get that either through the public sector network or through that external consultancy as well. So very much a live risk for us and one that we are managing. But I'm happy outside of the meeting to pick it up as members feel appropriate.
Thank you for that assurance, Helen. Any other comments or questions from members, please? I can't see any other hand. Oh, David, ddech chi eisiau dod I fewn? Diolch, David.
Ie, diolch Cadeirydd. Ie, just bod pawb ar yr un tudalen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to ensure that we're all on the same wavelength, I wasn't sure how to read the word minimal, but a minimal would appear to be more risk-averse than cautious. And you have various grades of risk averse, but to some extent, it's as if we're dismissing something, but we are adopting the most cautious approach with a minimal risk appetite. If that is the case, I agree. This is in addition to, this is on top of the list of risks with every organisation that I work with, and we need to take it seriously. You're entirely right there, David.
Comments or questions? I can't see any hands being raised. So the recommendations before you are that you note the Strategic Risk Register and review and approve the risk appetite in paragraphs 14 to 21 below. Can I have somebody to propose, please? Diolch Gareth, thank you Mark. So will you all show that you agree? Diolch yn fawr. So we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the budget setting for 2026-27. And Helen, I presume that it's yourself that's presenting this, is it?
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to hand over to the Head of Finance, Elgan Roberts. What I would say, though, is that we discussed this at length in the Audit Committee this morning. The paper, the same paper, and all of the proposals were subject to quite detailed scrutiny. And the outcome of that meeting was that they recognised the work that had taken place and endorsed the proposals made within the paper. I'm not going to cut across Elgan, but I'll hand over to him. Thank you.
Diolch Helen, pnawn da cadeirydd ag aelodau. Today I'll take you through the process we have followed to set a balanced budget for 26-27 and outline the current levy position. This is an important stage in our planning cycle as we must share indicative levy figures with local authorities by the end of December. The Budget Scrutiny Working Group has been central to this work. The group includes representatives from each local authorities and has met on 5 times during the year. Those meetings look closely at every part of our spending and income, examining pay, cost, non-pay cost, capital financing and income. As a service, we issue a base budget and any new item of expenditure over £10,000 needs a business case, and there's a new template that's been developed for 26-27 budget setting, which is based on the government's 5-case model. As part of Budget Scrutiny Working Group, we've also had external advisors providing training around business cases from Mer's Internal Audit and capital financing from Arlene Close. And key milestones included the first draft budget presented in September, with a second draft in October with refined assumptions and risk, and then a final draft proposal to the group on the 19th of November. This process has given a transparency and challenge and ensures our plans align with the authority wellbeing objectives and duties. In terms of the proposed revenue budget for 26-27, this stands at 54.375 million, with a plan to utilise 271,000 from reserves to fund one-off expenditure to ease the impact on the levy. This gives draft levy of 54.1 million, which is an average increase of 4.47% across all local authorities. This is an improved position from the first draft, which was an increase of 6.5% seen in paragraph 12 of the report, with scrutiny from the group and the finance team leading to an increase in income projections and a reduction in pay and non-pay costs. Employee costs are expected to increase by 4.9% for 26-27, and this does include £352,000 for expanding capacity in line with the recommendations from the Fire Advisor for Wales. Excluding these additional costs, the underlying year-on-year increase is 4%. Non-pay costs will rise by 2.5%, but as I mentioned earlier, utilisation of one-off reserves reduced the levy impact to closer to 0.2% for non-pay. And we've also anticipated income to increase and has established a budget for sale of vehicles and interest expected on cash balances. And then finally, a capital allocation of 6.661 million is proposed for 26-27. However, these schemes will only progress once all associated business cases have been fully developed and approved. Appendix 1 sets out the planning assumptions and the key risks and uncertainty. But to summarise the main points, we've included as 3.8% for pay award for all staff. However, national pay negotiations for 26-27 have not been agreed. Grant income may change, which could affect our funding position, and interest rates could move, and that will impact the capital financing. And we also face challenges recruiting staff, specifically RDS. Before I conclude, I'd like to thank all members of the Budget Scrutiny Working Group, the finance team and budget holders for their engagement and scrutiny throughout this process. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr Elgan, and as has been pointed out, the budget setting process has been regularly reviewed by the Audit Committee and by the Budget Scrutiny Working Group. But obviously, there's the opportunity here for members to comment, to ask questions. So over to you. Elgan, it looks as if you and the rest of the team and the members have done such a good job. There's no questions or comments, but I can see that David and the chief want to come in. So David, chi gynta, diolch.
Ie, diolch cadeirydd, sori, ffeindio'n mute button.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I needed to find my unmute button. Elgan and Helen and the team have done some heroic work in preparing the budget. We've had a number of meetings of the budget scrutiny working group, consisting of members of the audit committee rather than the exec, and we've really delved into the detail in some 5 or 6 meetings in total. And as Elgan said, this has developed. There are 3 things I would like to say. There are some things that are funded through one-off reserves. Now, I would not be happy to be funding a permanent budget from the reserves. That would store up problems for subsequent years. But the things that are funded through the reserves are one-off expenditure items, which is appropriate. Secondly, we have the pay inflation. Some of us jumped on this call before it began, just referring to the pay bargaining happening within local governments, and the percentages bandied about was something in the region of 10 to 17% increase, which won't be realistic. But we have a figure which is 3.8% pay increase. We don't know what it'll be. It'll be some months before we get a definite answer, but we will see whether this will be enough, whether we'll have any money spare. But I think it is a sufficient estimate and sufficiently prudent to proceed with this, and that is a proper estimate within a budget. And thirdly, Helen, Elgan and myself have been keeping the chairs of the 6 authorities in the picture as regards the budget as it's evolved. And we had a discussion with them around 6 weeks ago, if I recall. And things have improved since then. And of course, the broader picture as regards the Welsh government was agreed last month, which will give assurances to local authorities a somewhat better position than they had predicted a week or 2 ago. And I think that the increase of 4 to 5% for various councils is quite reasonable in the context of the grant increase for those authorities. So I propose that I think this is a reasonable and prudent increase for our stakeholders. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for your comments, David.
Very good cooperation and communication between officers and 151 officers and local authorities to know how things are panning out, so that they can't say that this has come as a surprise to us. And it's also, I think, really good news that members can report back to their constituent authorities that £271,000 has been used from reserves to try and keep the levy increase as low as possible. I think that's shows that the fire service is doing its bit. Any other questions or comments? I can't see any hands being raised. No, I'm not going to read them all. You can see for yourselves there's 4 recommendations, all just for noting and then endorsing the actual draft financial levy of 54.104 million from the constituent local authorities. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Mark. A seconder? Thank you, Gareth. Will you show that you agree? That's been passed. So we go on to the last item on the agenda, which is the consultation of a national framework for fire and rescue services 2026. I think it's ACFO Justin Evans who's presenting this. Justin, diolch.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. So this paper presents to members the Welsh Government's draft national framework for fire and rescue services and our proposed response, which we're asking you to endorse today. So the Fire and Rescue Services Act requires the Welsh Government to publish a national framework to guide the work of the Fire and Rescue Authority, and a new draft framework was released for consultation on the 22nd of October to replace the existing framework, which has been in place since 2016. The consultation on that framework, on the new framework, ends this week on the 17th of December. The national framework really just sets out what the Welsh Government expects from us over the next few years, and probably just really reflects the changes to the world that we operate in. So we've already spoken today about things like the changes in the climate, demographic shifts, new technology, and the challenges that have come about through following the Grenfell tragedy. There's 4 key themes in the framework. Firstly, the strategic context that recognises the complexity of these risks, these new risks that we face from climate change and ageing populations. Also includes a mixed reference to global security threats. Secondly, resourcing to risk, and we've already spoken about resourcing today, making sure that we plan and we allocate resources based upon evidence and local risk profiles. Thirdly, in the framework is people, leadership and culture. So there's a focus in there around well-being, inclusion and leadership development. And finally, there's a section on corporate issues, which covers governance, accountability, collaboration and sustainability, with that push towards net zero. So within the pack, within Appendix 1, you'll find the full text response that we've drafted to the 11 questions that are posed in the consultation. Our position is that we broadly support the direction of travel that is outlined within the framework. The framework aligns well with our community risk management planning and our strategy duties. But we have taken the opportunity to make recommendations within our response to strengthen the framework in a few key areas. We've emphasised the need for digital transformation and predictive modelling so that we can anticipate the risks that we've been speaking about rather than just reacting to them. We've highlighted our ambition for the new training and development hub in North Wales. That will give us the capacity and ability to prepare for these future challenges and deliver modern and flexible training. We've reinforced our 5 guiding principles, which is prevention, people, protection, response and the environment, as the foundation in everything and all the work that we do. We've put a strong response in around the Welsh language. We've asked for stronger integration across leadership, workforce development and engagement with the communities as well. And finally, we've raised an important point on environmental accountability. Now, whilst we fully support sustainability goals, we've asked for some clarity on the role of fire prevention and firefighting activity as components of climate change mitigation, and what the impacts of that may mean for us as a fire service that has to balance its response arm versus protection of the environment. In terms of implications and risks, there's no immediate financial implications from this report, but the framework will influence our future resource planning and our investment priorities. The consultation aligns with our ongoing work around organisational development and work around leadership, cultural change and workforce sustainability. And I guess the key risk arising from this report would be not actually submitting a response, or a missed opportunity for us to influence the strategic direction of fire and rescue services in Wales in the future. So, Chair, that concludes my summary. Happy to take any questions on the framework or our response and what this means for the fire service moving forward.
Thank you, Justin. Certainly a new national framework is long overdue, and thank you for officers for putting this response together. Any comments or questions from members, please? I can't see any hands being raised, so the recommendations before you are: number 1, note the publication of the draft national framework for fire and rescue services in Wales. Number 2, endorse the proposed response to the consultation as set out in Appendix 1. And third, authorise the submission of the response to Welsh Government by the consultation deadline on the 17th of December. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Gareth. Seconder. Thank you, Mark. Will you show that you all agree? Diolch yn fawr. That's been passed. As I said at the beginning, there's no urgent matters, so that brings the meeting to an end. Just leaves me to say to you all, Nadolig llawen a blwyddyn newydd dda to you and all your families. Take care, everyone.
Nadolig llawen.
Nadolig llawen.
Nadolig llawen.